In the quiet village of Idamo, where red clay roads stretched between thatched huts and the scent of palm oil filled the air, there lived a young woman named Amina. Her skin was smooth like river stones, her eyes sparkled like morning dew, and her smile, her smile, could melt the heart of the sternest elder. Everyone in the village called her the Jewel of Idamo. But Amina was not just beautiful. She was clever too. And with every compliment she received, her dreams grew larger. She didn't want a simple life. No, she wanted more. She wanted silk clothes, golden jewelry, and a home with tall walls and shining tiles. A life far from the struggles of the village. Each morning, Amina walked to her job at a roadside eatery in the nearby town. There, she served hot pepper soup and fufu to laborers and traders. But many of the customers didn't just come for the food. They came to see her. They left extra coins on the table just to hear her laugh or see her lean closer with those curious eyes. One man, however, always sat quietly in the corner. His name was Obadele. A soft-spoken farmer with strong arms and honest eyes, Obadele came every evening and left a single flower on Amina's tray. Never money. "You deserve love, not tips," he once said with a shy smile. But Amina only laughed and said, "Love can't buy me satin dresses, Obadele." Though his heart ached, Obadele remained kind. He believed that one day she would see the value of a loyal heart. One week, a buzz swept through the village. A wealthy merchant named Kahinda had arrived from the city. He came in a shining black Jeep that left dust clouds behind him and wore clothes so clean they reflected the sun. Kahinda had built a name in the city markets, owning several shops, trading in gold and fabrics, and being a man of influence and respect. When he visited the eatery, the other women whispered and adjusted their wrappers. But it was Amina who caught his eye, and she knew it. That night, he returned with a rosewood box filled with bangles. "For you," Kahinda said, placing the box before her. "You're too precious to serve food. Let me take care of you." Amina's breath caught in her throat. No man had ever spoken to her like that, not even the wealthy traders. And Kahinda was not just rich. He was calm, serious, and carried himself like a king. Within days, he visited her every morning and evening, bringing gifts, scented oils, silky wrappers, and promises of a new life. "I see a queen in you," he said one morning. "Leave this job. Come with me to the city. Be mine." Amina didn't hesitate. She told her boss she was leaving, packed her clothes, and returned to the village with Kahinda to announce their engagement. The whole village celebrated. Drums echoed through the night, elders danced, and children sang songs of blessing. Amina stood proudly beside Kahinda, wrapped in gold-trimmed cloth, her hands full of rings and her heart full of dreams. But in a quiet corner, Obadele watched the celebration, holding a small flower that had no place anymore. He turned away and walked into the night, whispering to the wind, "May she find happiness, even if it's not with me." The village danced, but far away, fate watched in silence. And it was not smiling. Amina's new life began like a dream, smooth, bright, and full of sweet promises. After the grand engagement, Kahinda returned to the city with her, and true to his word, he gave her everything she had ever imagined. He moved her into a modern house with painted walls, running water, and tiled floors that clicked under her every step. Her room had a wide mirror, soft rugs, and a wardrobe full of flowing gowns. Amina stared at it all with wide eyes, her heart racing with joy. "This is the life I deserve," she whispered to herself. Every morning, Kahinda would kiss her forehead and leave for his business meetings. "You don't need to work anymore," he told her. "Rest, shop, enjoy. You are my queen now." And so Amina strolled through city markets with heavy bracelets on her wrists and gold chains dancing around her neck. She became the talk of the neighborhood. "That's Kahindi's bride," people would say. "She used to be a village girl, but now she walks like royalty." But Kahinde was more than just a man of wealth. He was a man of tradition, raised under the guidance of elders and the sacred ways. Every decision he made was with wisdom, and behind his wealth was a deep connection to the spiritual world. One evening, as he returned home, he sat with Amina under the moonlight and said gently, "Soon, we will be married fully. A traditional wedding. My people are already preparing." Amina smiled, but inside, a strange feeling stirred. She had all she wanted: riches, comfort, attention. But something inside her was restless. The next day, Kahinda invited his spiritual advisor, Baba Oro, to bless the house. The old man arrived dressed in white cloth, his walking stick tapping. With each step, his eyes were sharp, and though he smiled at Amina, he watched her closely. After his prayers and blessings, Baba Oro called Kahinde aside. "She is beautiful, yes," Baba Oro said, "but beauty can hide a hungry spirit. Her heart is not yet settled." Kahinda frowned. "She is young. She will learn peace in time." Baba Oro looked into the fire burning in the courtyard and whispered, "You must test her, son. Wealth draws many, but only truth holds them." Kahinda said nothing, but the words stayed with him. Days turned into weeks, and Amina grew used to the luxury. Kahinda continued to treat her like royalty: gifts, attention, and patience. He introduced her to his family and business partners. He even gave her a small share in one of his shops, hoping she would feel part of his world. But Amina did not want to manage cloth or count money. She wanted to sit at grand tables, wear gowns with longer trains, and be noticed at high society parties. She wanted more. One night, at a grand event thrown by Kahinda's business friend, Amina walked in wearing a glittering emerald dress. Music played, laughter echoed, and rich men in expensive suits filled the hall. That's when she saw him. Folarin, taller than Kahindi, dressed in foreign designer clothes, and surrounded by admirers. When their eyes met, Amina felt a pull, a flicker of something dangerous. Folarin smiled and raised his glass. Amina smiled back, and just like that, the wind of her heart began to change direction. From the moment she locked eyes with Folarin, Amina felt a new hunger awaken inside her. A hunger not for food, nor shelter, but for attention, power, and a lifestyle even grander than what Kahindi had given her. Folarin was not just rich. He was loud with his wealth, flashing designer watches, foreign perfumes, and a confidence that filled every room he walked into. He was the kind of man who bought cars just to match his shoes, and who spoke of flying to Dubai for lunch as though it were nothing. After their brief exchange at the party, Folarin sought her out. A few days later, he visited the boutique shop where Amina sat pretending to manage things. "You are even more beautiful in daylight," he said smoothly. "Kahinda is lucky, but I wonder, do you feel lucky?" Amina laughed lightly, pretending not to understand. "Of course I do. Kahinda is kind." "Kind?" Folarin leaned in slightly. "Kind is for friends. Queens deserve more than kindness. They deserve to rule." His words stirred something in her heart. She smiled, but she didn't tell him to. Leave. From that day, their meetings became frequent. First, a chance encounter at the market. Then, a ride in his glossy SUV. Soon, they were having coffee in quiet cafes and laughing behind closed curtains. Amina told herself it was nothing serious, just friendly talk, but her heart knew otherwise. Kahinda noticed. He noticed how her laughter faded at home, how her phone was always face down, how she avoided his eyes when he asked about her day. He wasn't a fool. One evening, he sat beside her, gently holding her hand. "Amina," he said, Is there something troubling you? No, she replied too quickly. I'm just tired, that's all. But Kahinda wasn't satisfied. That night, after she had fallen asleep, he left the bed quietly and walked outside to the back courtyard. He knelt beside the sacred stone and whispered into the wind. Baba Oro, he called. I seek the truth. The next day, Baba Oro arrived in silence. Without speaking to Amina, he walked through the house, touched the walls, burned herbs in the corners, and left behind small charms made of kola nut and twine. Later that evening, he told Kahinda, the wind carries whispers, and your home is no longer silent. She is dancing in two places, and both feet cannot wear the same shoe. Kahinda's heart sank. He had hoped it wasn't true, but Baba Oro's words never missed. Still, he did not confront Amina. Instead, he decided to wait and watch. He instructed Baba Oro to perform a quiet ritual, not of harm, but of truth. One that would reveal everything when the time was right. Meanwhile, Amina continued her secret dance. Folarin offered her gifts, promises, and a dream beyond her current reality. Leave Kahinda, he said one night. Come to me. I will make you a queen, not just of a house, but of the city. And she believed him. What Amina didn't know was that the spirits had started to whisper her name. And in the silence of the night, the ancestors were already preparing judgment, not with fire, but with consequence. The winds in Idimo carried more than just dust and bird songs. They carried whispers. Whispers from the ancestors, stirred by betrayal. Baba Oro, the old spiritual man, had opened the path for truth to reveal itself, and now the spirits began to move. In the heart of the city, Amina continued her affair with Folarin, unaware that her every step was being watched, not by men, but by eyes unseen. She spent less time at home and more in the company of the man who promised her the world. Folarin spoke boldly of power, land, and houses in the capital. His words were like honey, and Amina drank from them eagerly. One evening, as Kahinda sat alone in the courtyard, Baba Oro arrived. His white robe dragged softly behind him, and his staff glowed faintly in the fading light. It is time, the old man said. Kahinda nodded slowly. Will she feel pain? No, Baba Oro replied. But anyone who lies beside her in betrayal will taste the price. With that, Baba Oro brought out a small calabash bowl filled with red earth, feathers, and kola nuts. He placed it under the moonlight and chanted ancient words that shook the very leaves on the trees. As his voice rose, a strange wind blew through. The yard and the air grew thick with silence. The ritual was done. A binding curse had been placed, not to harm Amina, but to protect the truth. The curse would ensure that any man who lay with her in deceit would suffer a fate no gold could cure. It was the justice of the old ways, not revenge, balance. Back in the city, Amina had made her decision. She would leave Kahinda. She was tired of quiet love and calm respect. She wanted more, and Folarin was the promise of that more. She didn't even wait for Kahinda to return from his business trip. She packed her finest clothes, took her jewelry, and left a simple note. Thank you for everything, but I've found a new path. Please don't look for me. Amina Kahinda returned that night and read the note in silence. He did not cry. He did not shout. He only folded the note, walked into his prayer room, and whispered, "Let the truth complete its circle." Meanwhile, Amina moved into one of Folarin's city apartments, large, golden, with velvet furniture and servants who bowed when she passed. She smiled at her reflection, proud of how far she had come. That night, as Folarin kissed her neck and pulled her close, he whispered, "Now you belong to me." And with that kiss, the curse awoke. At first, nothing seemed wrong. But a few days later, Folarin began to cough. A dry, deep cough that wouldn't go away. Doctors were called. Medicines were given, but his condition worsened. His throat burned, his chest ached, his voice became a whisper. Each day, his body weakened. "What is happening to me?" he gasped. One night, his body shaking with fever, Amina panicked. She blamed the air, the food, even the stress. But deep down, a strange fear began to grow. Something didn't feel right. Finally, in desperation, Folarine's family took him to a powerful, traditional healer. The old woman looked into his eyes, placed her palm on his chest, and whispered, "This is not a sickness from this world. You have touched what was sealed. You have broken a sacred bond." Folarin trembled. "Then what must I do?" The old woman looked up and said one name, Kehinda. Folarin lay on a silk-covered bed that now felt more like a prison than luxury. Sweat soaked his fine linens, his voice was reduced to a painful rasp, and every breath felt like sandpaper scraping his throat. The strongest doctors had tried, the finest medicines had failed. And now he was forced to believe something he had always mocked: spiritual power. The healer's words echoed in his mind like a bell. "You have broken a sacred bond. Only Kehinda holds the key." At first, pride held him back. Why should he beg Kehinde? He had taken his woman. He had won. But each hour brought more pain. His muscles weakened, his hands trembled, and his heart raced with fear. Amina sat beside him, her eyes wide with worry, her fingers clutching his. "It's just a sickness," she whispered. "You'll be fine." But Folarin stared at her with hollow eyes. "You were his," he coughed. "And now, whatever binds you, is killing me." Amina's throat tightened. For the first time, doubt pierced through her pride. She had thought her path was paved with gold. But now, all she saw was fear, and a man dying because of her choices. That same night, under the cover of darkness, Folarin's driver helped him into a car. They drove out of the city, toward the village where Kehinda lived. The journey was long and painful, each bump on the road twisting Folarin's body in agony. When they finally arrived at Kehinda's compound, Folarin was too weak to stand. The guards recognized him but hesitated. Word had already spread of Amina's betrayal. "Tell Kehinda I beg for his presence," Folarin whispered. Inside, Kehinda stood at his window, watching the moonlight dance on the ground. He had known this moment would come. He stepped outside, calm and composed. When he saw Folarin slumped in the car seat, barely breathing, he said nothing. He only gestured for him to be brought inside. They laid Folarin on a mat, and Kehinda sat before him. "You are cursed," Kehinda said quietly. "I know," Folarin rasped. "Please, I didn't know. You touched what was sealed. You disrespected what was sacred. You knew she was mine, yet you still pursued her." Folarin's voice broke. "I thought she was free. She said she was leaving you." Kehinda's eyes narrowed. "She was mine in spirit until our bond was broken, by truth. And truth revealed itself through betrayal." There was a long silence. Then Folarin reached out with a trembling hand. "I beg you, Kehinda, lift this curse. I don't want to die." Kehinda turned to Baba Oro, who had silently joined them. "Should I forgive him?" Kehinda asked. Baba Oro closed his eyes. "That decision belongs to the heart." The curse was not for punishment but revelation. Now that the truth is clear, mercy may return. Kehinde looked down at Folarin, then said slowly, "I will lift the curse, but you must hear me well. Amina will never be satisfied. Not by you. Not by anyone. Her heart does not love men. It loves what men give." Folarin nodded weakly. With a deep chant, Baba Oro began the reversal ritual. He passed a gourd of bitter herbs over Folarin's body, sprinkled blessed water, and whispered sacred words. When the ritual ended, Folarin's body began to cool. His breathing steadied. The curse was lifted. But Cahinda rose and spoke his final words. Take her, keep her, lose her. That is your path. Mine ends here. The bar. Sun beat down on the dusty road as Amina walked, her once flawless skin now tired and pale. Her feet, once wrapped in silk slippers, were bare and bruised. Her gown, now worn and faded, hung loosely around her frame. She passed through town after town, but every door she knocked on remained closed. Gone were the days when people whispered, in awe of her beauty. Now they whispered with pity and warning. Isn't that the woman who left the rich merchant? The one who cursed the man who loved her? She was once a queen in the city. Look at her now. The same streets that once echoed with her laughter now seemed to sigh in sadness as she passed. She had chased gold and lost everything. After months of wandering, she returned to Idamo, her childhood village, the place where it all began. The same hut stood, the same trees swayed in the wind, but the people had changed. They no longer looked at her with admiration. They turned their faces or walked away quietly. Obadel, the farmer who had once brought her flowers, was now a well-known name in the village. His lands had expanded, his harvests were bountiful, and his heart had grown stronger. He saw her return, thin and worn, with eyes full of shame. He said nothing, only nodded once and continued hoeing his field. Amina found a small job at the same eatery she had once left behind with such pride. She tied her hair in a scarf, served bowls of soup again, and quietly cleaned tables as new. Younger girls received the compliments she once basked in. She had no jewelry, no grand car, no fancy friends. Just the echo of her own choices. But perhaps the greatest pain was not the loss of wealth. It was the loss of love, trust, and dignity. At night, she would sit by the small stream and watch the moon ripple on the water. Sometimes the children of the village would gather around her, curious. Auntie Amina, one of them asked once, is it true you lived in a house with many rooms? She smiled weakly. Yes, child. And is it true you wore golden earrings and had a car? Yes. Then, why did you come back here with nothing? Amina looked at the water, silent for a long time. Then she said softly, because I thought gold was more important than a good heart. But gold fades. Hearts remember. The children blinked, not fully understanding, but sensing the weight of her words. That story, the fall of Amina, became a legend in Idamo. Elders would tell it around fires, mothers would whisper it to their daughters, and young men would learn not just to chase beauty, but to look for loyalty. Cahinda went on to become a chief in his clan, known for his wisdom and restraint. He never spoke badly of Amina again. To him, the past was done, and his future was brighter. As for Amina, she remained in the village, older, quieter, and gentler. Though she never regained her former life, she began to find peace in humility. She helped at the market, cared for the elders, and taught young girls how to sew and cook, and every time someone asked about her story, she would only say, never chase what shines brighter, chase what stays longer. Years passed, and the seasons in Idamo changed like the pages of an old book. Rain came and went, the harvests ripened and faded, and new children were born who never knew Amina as anything more than the quiet woman at the corner of the market. But among the elders, her story remained alive. It was not told with hatred, nor mockery, but as a gentle warning, a reminder of the dangers of pride, of chasing too much, too fast. Amina herself had changed. Her shoulders had lowered, her voice had softened, and the sparkle in her eyes was no longer one of ambition, but of reflection. The villagers began to greet her again, not with praise, but with politeness. She was no longer feared or envied. She was simply human. She spent her mornings at the market selling cooked groundnuts, and her evenings helping the widows fetch water. She stitched clothes for the children who couldn't afford new ones, and taught them the songs her grandmother once sang to her. One afternoon, as the village gathered under the mango trees for a storytelling event, a boy, no more than 10, stood up and said, "Tell us the story of the woman who left a rich man and lost everything." The elders turned toward Amina. She was sitting on a stool, peeling yams with her calloused fingers. She looked up, and the silence grew heavy. But then she stood. She dusted her wrapper, stepped forward, and looked at the crowd. Some familiar, some new, all curious. "That woman," she began, "was once the most admired in all the land. She had more than most dream of, wealth, attention, and a man who truly loved her." The children leaned closer, eyes wide. "But she made a mistake," Amina said, her voice calm. "She thought gold was better than loyalty. She thought there would always be someone richer, someone better. And so, she threw away what really mattered." "Did she get rich again?" a girl asked. Amina smiled. "No, she lost everything. But she learned something more important than wealth." "What did she learn?" another child asked. "That no matter how beautiful you are, or how much you have, if you are not content, you will lose your peace. And once peace is gone, even the softest bed feels hard." The elders nodded in quiet agreement. One of them, old Mama Ibun, clapped slowly and said, "That is the true ending of a story, when the one who lived it tells it with wisdom." Later that night, as the stars scattered across the sky, Amina sat alone outside her hut. The wind carried the sound of crickets and laughter from nearby fires. Her eyes glistened, not with sadness, but with peace. Across the village, Obadele, now a respected husband and father, passed by and saw her sitting under the neem tree. Their eyes met briefly, and for a moment there was no past, just two people who had lived, learned, and continued walking forward. He raised his hand in a gentle wave. She returned it with a small nod. Some stories end with weddings, some end with riches. But Amina's story ended with understanding. She never became a queen again. She never sat in marble halls or wore gold anklets. But she became something greater than she ever dreamed of when she was young and proud. She became a lesson.